This is Mario Andretti, and you're listening to Fascination Street podcast.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street.
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is part 1 of my conversation with the legendary Kinky Friedman. In this episode, we get to know where Kinky was born and how he got into the music business. We talk about some of his songs. He tells fun and entertaining stories about Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan, among others. We talk a little bit about his new upcoming album, The Poet of Motel 6, and some new and exciting news about his collection of detective novels, which are now being turned into audiobooks read by the amazing Mike Dawson, who was my guest last week and is also the voice of the Adam Carolla network of podcasts. We do talk a little bit about how Kinky is part of Dennis Quaid's upcoming scripted fiction podcast, Uncle Drank, which will be available everywhere. Plus, Kinky lets me play a couple of songs. As I said, this is part 1, so make sure that you come back next Monday to catch part 2. This is part 1 of my conversation with musician, singer-songwriter, author, former politician, outspoken activist, and Texas legend, Kinky Friedman.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Kinky Friedman. How are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, but Steve, I've just about decided that I'm going to have to get hearing aids.
What? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. Everyone I know that's got them, they drop them in their coffee and everything else. Plus, there's a lot of stuff you don't need to hear.
Yeah, that's true. My father-in-law, he has some, and he just about never wears them because either the TV's too loud or the girls are too loud talking in the other room and it picks that up. Or I think one time he had a dog accidentally eat one of them.
You wonder why Bob Dylan doesn't want to meet his junior high school basketball coach or something at the place. Because there's nothing in common after 70 years, really very little, unless they really were friends,
Right.
And there's nothing to say. It's small talk. If it's going to be that, okay. I mean, I like people. I like to talk to people and occasionally to listen. You know who that guy is?
The guy in the glasses?
Not Gandhi.
Who that guy is?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Who is it?
It's Father Damien.
And who is Father Damien?
Father Damien was the priest who served the lepers in Molokai.
Oh.
And the first white man to die of what?
Malaria?
No.
Dysentery?
No. You know the one, the big one.
The Spanish flu?
No.
The plague?
No.
We could just hit them all.
Let's see if we can hit this. The time would be the turn of the century, and it would be where your body parts fall off.
Oh, leprosy.
You got it.
You got it.
Okay.
He was the first one, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Queen of Hawaii came to give a speech to the people, and she couldn't finish it. She was in tears. The doctors would leave their medicine thing on the fence post, because, nobody would go near leprosy area.
Right. Yeah, they stayed away from all that. Everybody was so terrified of it.
Robert Louis Stevenson visited. John Wayne visited there. Van Friedman family singers, they visited.
Wow. Is that a drawing? How did you end up with that?
The Damien picture?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where I got it in Hawaii. That's Kalapapa. I've been there a few times. And Molokai is, I believe, the only Hawaiian, I hope it is, still the only island that does not accept touring vessels, ships.
Oh, really? No,
yeah.
No tourists.
The culture is gone in a heartbeat as soon as it...
Yeah.
It's just... Well, anyway.
This is going to be just to get to know you. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff. And you are a neat fellow. First of all, thank you again. I appreciate you letting me do this. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. I'm very, very excited. So first, just tell me where you were born. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Born in Chicago, lived there 1 year, couldn't find work, moved to Texas, where I haven't worked since, actually.
So you couldn't find work at when you were 1 year old?
No, could not find work. But I will say that an interesting observation on my part, I believe, is that there were 5 Jew boys, all born at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago, and all born right around the same time frame. I think one might have been slightly ahead, but the year was 1944. That's when I was born. I'm now 76 trombones. I'm 76, but I read at the 78-year-old level.
Gotcha.
And at any rate, there were 5 of us all born in this one cluster, and they are Michael Bloomfield, Steve Goodman, Warren Zevon, Shel Silverstein, and Kinky Friedman.
All born at the same hospital?
Yeah. And all of them have fallen off their perch by this time. But yeah, I didn't know. Somebody ran that down and found that Shel Silverstein was more than a little bit older than the other 4.
Oh, really?
But I don't think that's even true. How would we research that, or would we might go into a diabetic coma researching that. It might be rather dull, tedious work.
Yeah, it does sound almost pointless. At the end of that search, what do we got?
Right. Well, I'm working here today under, I've been a little ill. I went to the doctor. He said, I got bad news for you. You've got AIDS. And you also have Alzheimer's. And I said, well, at least I don't have AIDS.
So your family moves to Texas when you're 1.
Right. But I have this theory that if you're born somewhere, even if you only stay a few minutes, it has some effect on you. One negatively, positive in some different ways. That's why you'll notice, try my test, go into some swanky restaurant someplace, the place that has a maitre d'. Oh, I meant to tell you, I also am suffering from early onset asshole.
Oh, cool. At least it's not AIDS.
Right. You will see that the maitre d', according to my theory, is almost always from Wingo, Mississippi, or Lower Baboon's asshole, or something. They're from places they're not proud of.
Right.
They would rather not discuss it.
Sure.
Born, I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I've been absolutely right.
Really?
You can be in New York, you can be in L.A. The maitre d' has got something to prove. I never liked maitre d's. I mean, I haven't seen very many of them because I avoid those kind of
establishments.
Establishment was the word I was looking for. Now, what was the word we were talking about? The illness?
Leprosy.
Leprosy. As someone who's actually visited the leper colony a few times and a great fan of Father Damien. See, Damien was never supposed to go to Molokai. He was trained to be a priest. And his brother, who was ready to take the gig over there in Hawaii, his brother died, I think. And Father Damien was recruited to really do work they thought he may not be up to, which he was. He was great. He lived his life as an imitation of Jesus. He was an artist. He was a carpenter. And he taught croquet to the kids, which, as I understand it, to this day, they still... And we had Robert Louis Stevenson visited Molokai. He said if he hadn't have left when he did after 2 days, he never would have.
Really? Robert Louis Stevenson said that?
Yeah. People were very moved by just seeing the girls playing the croquet and just the idea of it. I mean, this is a whole different thing. They didn't have all these wonderful drugs back then. We've hit leprosy, just touched on it.
Yeah, so leprosy, check.
Next subject, okay.
When did you know that you wanted to be in the music business? Now, for those who don't know, and I can't imagine there's very many, you have been playing music for, oh man, if I say a number, it's going to make you sound old.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Well, if something happened there, and I took about a 40-year hiatus, and that was where this story comes in about Willie encouraging me to write after 40 years.
Willie Nelson.
Yeah. It came about with him calling me one night at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I always encourage anybody to call me late at night.
Why?
Because it reminds me of a happier time when there was more action and people would call in the middle of the night and something would be going on. I think that's why. But it's never bothered me. And, you know, I mean, if I had kids that had to get to school in the morning and a wife nagging about it or whatever, I probably wouldn't enjoy late night phone calls as much. But so Willie says, what are you doing, Kink? And I said, I am watching Matlock. Willie said, that's not good. He said, not a good thing. It's bad energy. So Willie says, turn Matlock off. He said, turn him off, Kink, and start writing. Well, I thought about that for a while, and it mildly inspired me. One, that Willie's older than me and took some interest in what I'm doing, which rarely happens. Because, you know, like Rex Harrison on his deathbed was very abusive to his 2 sons or 20 sons or whatever he had. Anyway, so Willie says, turn off Matlock and start writing. So I started writing like Oscar Wilde with his hair on fire. I wrote like crazy. And I wrote 12 brand new songs of what I felt was a fairly high caliber. 12 songs in about 2 weeks or so.
Was that the Circus of Life album?
Yeah, that might have been.
I think
Jesus
so.
in Pajamas?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. So at any rate, when I finished, I called Willie and said, look, I've written 12 songs in about 10 days or whatever it was. And he said, well, send them to me. So, you know, I'd like to hear them. I said, okay. I said, Willie, I've been hearing these rumors that you're not well. You know, you're not feeling very good these days. What's going on, man? And Willie said, well, I've been a little up, a little down, the usual. And then he said, by the way, Kinky, what channel is Matlock on that? Now, that struck me as very funny and full of wisdom. Most of us watch Matlock. We have a Matlock. It may not be Matlock. Matlock is a good show. I'll go to the wall for Matlock. I'll defend Matlock. But if you're watching Matlock every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, there is something you could be doing a little bit better, maybe.
Agreed.
That's all Willie's saying, and it worked with me. And the new songs I've written have most all been after that period of The Loneliest Man I Ever Met, which I wrote with Will Hoover in a very cantankerous writing session, as I recall. My friend from Nashville, actually. Well, he's not from Nashville. No one is from Nashville. Only Dinah Shore and Pat Boone.
They're the only ones, huh?
They were born in Nashville.
I think Los Angeles is the same way. Nobody's from there. Except like maybe Adam Carolla, and I think that's it. So why did you stop writing songs for 40 years?
It seemed to me they were going up into ether. And some of them were comedy songs and satirical songs, and that killed anybody taking you very seriously. And there's probably a lesson in there that you have just one song, like Warren Zevon's My Shit's Fucked Up.
Right.
Which happens to be a great song. And it's not just a funny song. It describes the state of the country and the world pretty well.
Right. But you covered that song?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was your song. I didn't know that was Warren's song.
No, that's Warren's. Yeah. I'd like to claim it, but... And so was Tom Waits' song, Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis.
I love that song.
Fucking good. Warren's song, I think I did justice to. Waits's, you can't even understand the words on this one when he's, they're really... So my version is probably better if you've never heard Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis. It originally came from a Christmas card from a girl named Trixie to Chuck E. Weiss, who was a friend of Waits's and mine, still is. And Chucky and I have written a song called See You Down the Highway. That's on the new record, which shall be entitled...
Leprosy.
No. Poet of Motel 6. The Poet of Motel 6, yeah.
That's the name of the new album?
That's the name of the new album, yeah, with a tribute song to Billy Joe Shaver.
When is that album coming out? Do you know yet?
Not yet, but we're sure gathering force this time. Sadly, it's a business, and I've never cared much about business, and people who don't care get eaten up pretty early on, which is why something like the record you mentioned, Circus of Life, speaking as the author of those songs, you should not, never judge your own stuff. You will find out right away that the song you never liked is the hit. True with My Shit's Fucked Up. I mean, Warren Zevon was beside himself. They picked Werewolves of London, which is a joke song, he felt, and it didn't do his work. Whatever. Some of the greatest songs of my career are on the new record. But songwriting, I don't know why anybody does it. It seems like today especially, this is not the Christopherson era where songs had meaning and where you wrote a great song and people would appreciate it. They don't care now. I'm still trying to give them like 10 great songs, if I can do that, original stuff. Too many people are now watching Matlock. Something is wrong.
Yeah. My wife and I were just talking last week. We heard a song on the radio, and I think she said, "What is this song about?" And I said, "I don't think songs are about anything anymore. It's just a catchy hook and just some words that they throw in. I don't really think that, like you said, the Christopherson era is over. Songs really aren't about anything anymore."
Can you imagine being part of that? I mean, I was a very peripheral part of it, mostly through Billy Swan, who was one of Chris's real confidants. In fact, Billy and Chris did the first demo for me and Bobby McGee.
Oh, they did it together?
They did it drunk, stoned, everything, and late at night, 4 a.m, on an old dysfunctional church organ, and Billy playing guitar and singing with Chris. And that's the first time Billy ever heard Chris's singing voice. And he was very polite about it. Chris says, I sound like a frog when I sing. I'm very conscious of it. But there was no denying that song because it just went beyond the bounds of country music. It was just a beautiful thing.
It's a gorgeous song.
Yeah, it is. And I wonder if it would get lost in the white noise today.
Maybe.
Maybe not. Maybe. There are enough people now breaking through the white noise. I mean, some of these bands that play in stadiums, I will never have that kind of a stadium appeal, But sure enough, 6 months later, they are gone.
Right.
Of course, 6 months later, I'm usually gone, too.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
If you'd like to help find answers for the families of unsolved crime victims from all over, or perhaps identify a Jane or John Doe, please visit DNAsolves.com, where you can submit your DNA from a consumer testing company like Ancestry or 23andMe to their database. DNAsolves.com.
Let's get back into it.
So who ended up making Bobby McGee a hit?
Janice.
Janice?
Yeah.
All right. Now, did she also do Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah.
All right. Now, I got a question for you. What is a plectrum, and will you show me your plectrum?
A plectrum is just the British pompous word for your plectrum, mate.
Oh, so it's just a pick.
Yeah, it's a pick. That's all. But that happens to be the one that Janis Joplin wrote Mercedes-Benz with.
That's what I heard.
I'm giving it to you. It'll bring you good luck within about 48 hours.
Well, thank you. I actually have one for you, too. It's got my logo on it. See, here's one for you. It says Fascination Street Podcast on it.
Oh, okay.
I got all kinds of stuff for you here, most of which you'll probably never use. There's some coasters and some stickers.
Oh, right, yeah.
Buttons and all
some of those
kinds.
could come in very handy.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff for you. How many of these do you give away and say that it's the one?
No, I don't give them away anymore.
You don't?
I went through that phase. I mean, I had a bunch of...
Can I really have this?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
And it really will bring you a change of luck in 48 hours. It may be good, maybe bad, probably good.
Let's go with good.
Let's go with good.
Let's go with good. So during that 40-year hiatus where you didn't write music.
No, I was writing books.
Right. That's what I was going to ask. So you stopped writing music because you felt like it was getting lost in the ether.
Well, I felt I was being misrepresented. I didn't have management really. And even people like Norman Greenbaum, who's a friend of mine, when I told him, hey, I'm going to send you this record, Resurrection. It's very different from what I usually do, Norman. The guy who did Spirit in the Sky.
Right.
He said, what's the funniest song on the record? I said, well, none of them. They're all tragic. Everyone in the fucking record is dead, Norman. And now Norman, who knows me fairly well, his impression of me was I was a comedian, which either means Norman ain't too bright, or
you have a branding issue.
Yeah, a branding issue. And now I have management of some, to me, young guys Well, a young guy who is obsessive about stuff, who's more of a bulldog than I am, very creative, damn fine musician.
Is that Phil?
That's Phil, yeah.
Phil Cody?
Yeah. Phil is making it happen. It looks really good. And if you don't have any promotion whatsoever, it's very hard. And that record you're talking about, Circus of Life, is done with no studio, almost no instrumentation.
Where did you record it?
In that building behind you there.
In that building behind me?
Yeah.
Wow.
But no drums, no. There was a box from HEB that Augie Meyer's son used as a drum with his fingertips, which was pretty good. And then it had people, a lot of people like Mickey Rayfield and Augie Myers and Joe Cerati, the guitarist from New Jersey, who is just a genius.
Is Mayfield a harmonica player?
Rayfield.
Rayfield.
I told you there was something wrong with this fucking mic. You can't. I'm not. Well, anyway, Mickey Rayfield. They're the ones who did My Shit's Fucked Up being an important song. Now, if we'd had drums with the damn thing, it might have gotten airplay. The record you're referring to, Circus of Life, got zero airplay, strictly on the reason that Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain didn't get any airplay initially. And it took Waylon Jennings and a lot of good old American disc jockeys to get that record off the launching pad because the program directors and the record company assholes refused to play it. I mean, they're just too sparse. You can't have Willie there and it's fucking Hound Dog, and that ain't going to work. And they couldn't have been more wrong because that song had already been recorded a bunch in the 40s. I'm talking now about Blue Eyes.
Right.
But it fit Willie. It didn't fit Hank. And that's why Willie, when he was sent the song, The Gambler.
Kenny Rogers, The Gambler?
That's right.
Okay.
Somebody sent it to him, the author probably. And he said, what about you recording this? I'd love for you to do this. And Willie listened to it one time, and he said, man, I'm not going to spend every night of my life saying, you got to know when to fold them. So he said, I'm not going to record this song, but I'll send it to somebody who it fits, who might have a big hit with it. And he sent it to Kenny Rogers, and the thing was a monster. And Willie never looked back, no regrets.
That's that magic, that lightning in a bottle, you know? Willie didn't have the passion. He didn't want to do it, so it might not have done as well as it did with Kenny.
Well, Willie has this optimism, a dangerous optimism. They said the same of Churchill. I was just bitching about Nashville. We'd come back to do some show or something 5 or 6 years ago. And I was just saying, you know, it's not, Ryman Hall is gone. They're playing it in this big Opryland kind of bullshit. And songs aren't important, really. You don't see people staying up all night writing and doing stuff like that anymore. And Willie said, well, he said, that's not true. He said, right now, he said, there's a bunch of young kids, guys, mostly, not entirely at all, that they have a pickup truck full of guitars and a suitcase full of songs, and they're headed for Nashville. And some of them are really good. So I said, yeah, but those ones run into a brick wall instantaneously. They run into this whorehouse of a corporation publishing. Now, with Netflix and everything, this is not about 3 people writing a song. It's about 7. And no song can have any soul when they get through with it.
Yeah, that's true.
And so now you see the Florida-Georgia line, whatever the fuck they are. Oh, that thing that happened with that kid recently. All his agents quit, everybody quit.
Oh, yeah, Morgan Wayland? Wayland Morgan?
Leprosy.
Yes,
I'll stick with leprosy.
Yeah, I think his name is Wayland Morgan.
I don't think so. I think it's Morgan.
Leprosy.
It's not Waylon. Waylon Jennings, like that?
Yeah, like that. No?
I don't think so. I think it's Morgan. Well, whatever the hell it is. Every agent, manager, publicist, everybody quit this kid. The record stores threw his shit out. Basically because he used the N-word, commonly used. He didn't even do that. He used half the N-word. And it's obscene to have to say N-word. But to make you happy, Steve.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But this is a word that every rapper uses.
Yeah.
Every rapper uses it. And little white teenage kids buy it, and they all like it. So this Merlin Morgan, whatever it is, see, the fact that we don't even know his fucking name is terrible.
I had never heard of him.
I had never heard of him. My sister said...
that story broke, and I didn't know who he was.
My sister got a rent-a-car and listened to... That was what they're playing, because it was the #1 song in the country at the time.
Okay.
It's one of the worst pieces of shit she's ever heard in her life. She
couldn't tell. I've never heard the song. I don't.
Well, and you never will. But as kind of a protest movement, it still sold 1 million records. And I think the guy really got screwed. I mean, but then again, it's not as if he was, some guy really taking a chance on something.
Right.
Oh, it's just interesting how he, honest to God, played in stadiums, a guy that we never heard of.
Yeah.
But that's what sells records. Now, Willie thinks going to jail helps sell records, and he encourages that. But he had a funny thing he said the other night on that documentary where I got in my good line about when I'm with Willie, I get so high I need a step ladder to scratch my ass.
Yeah.
But the interviewer was asking Willie, what do you have to say to young songwriters that have a suitcase full of songs that are headed to Nashville? And Willie said, turn around.
I interviewed a young lady, it's probably a year and a half ago. Her name is Bree Bagwell. At the time, it might be more now, but at the time, she was 7-time in a row female Texas country singer. And she came to here from Nashville. I don't know how she got to Nashville, but, she did that whole thing where she grabbed a suitcase and a guitar and tried to go make a name for herself in Nashville. And she ended up working at Sony, just writing songs in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, sitting in a cubicle writing songs. She said it was the most miserable thing she's ever done in her life.
That is so spirit grinding is a word we like to use. It's a terrible situation. And Willie's optimistic about that. He says, no, there will be in there. And it just couldn't be, but maybe it will be, who the hell knows? Nashville had great charm at one time, but never forget it was the life insurance and the Bible printing capital of the world at one time. And that influence remains.
Absolutely. So why books?
Well, I liked mysteries very much, particularly Miss Marple, who says there is much wickedness in this world. Sherlock Holmes, a great one, who says, what you do in this world is a matter of no consequence. The question is, what can you make people think you have done? Very wise. That's the reason he never revealed his methodology, because the minute he did, people would lose interest in him. Nobody would hire him for a case. They'd say, well, I could have told you that. And what were we talking about before that?
Why books?
So mystery books especially, because I know that mysteries offer resolution, and life does not. Life is a great hero slips on a banana peel, that dies. The channel swimmer drowns in the bathtub. That's life. And after a while, it's not very interesting. But a mystery novel? And now, if you can write a mystery novel, Steve, using yourself and your real friends, that's what I did.
Yes, you did.
There are these writers who write just shit, then they write 79 books and so forth. I mean, some of them make fortunes. I have barely made writing a financial pleasure, but I like to think that mysteries always, the good ones, afford resolution, whether it's Rex Stout or Raymond Chandler. Now, those guys and that resolution is the key and keeps the reader coming back. Life does not afford us resolution. It just doesn't. So I go to mystery novels instead. And Inspector McGray, he must have written 100 books. Inspector McGray steps on an ant, Inspector McGray hoses his wife, whatever it is there. And I once read an interview with that guy, the famous guy was at the time who wrote Inspector McGray. And he said that he doesn't do, and I really admire this, he said he doesn't use any diagrams, charts, or crap like that.
Really?
He doesn't even know how it's going to start or he needs the first sentence, and he already has a little hint of an ending he would like. But that's all he's got. And he said he will start with the back of a postcard that somebody got and go from there. So I started writing these books. Now there are 20 of them, and they are like my little children. They have a special following. So I went to a couple mystery novelist conventions.
Before you started writing the books?
Just as I was writing the first one. I was fucked up. I mean, I was coked out. Judaism saved me. I wasn't too bad a drunk, but a lot of cocaine. And I noticed at this convention of mystery novelists, they're all either smoking meerschaum pipes or they're wearing their hats at jaunty angles. And they clearly were just pretty dorky people. I mean, you know, and one of my models, just unconscious models, maybe barely conscious, was Lieutenant Columbo. Lieutenant Columbo may have been the greatest, not just television figure, but one of the greatest detectives of all time. Sherlock is right up there too. But I think what I got from him, and probably a lot of other people did too, but is that you pick up a Kinky Friedman book. You may like it, you may hate it, whatever, but you're going to think that you're about 10 steps ahead of the character. Read a Kinky book, and as you're getting into it, you're already figuring out, oh, it's going to go like this.
Yeah.
And somewhere in that book, you realize that motherfucker is smarter than I am, or savvier. And that was like the New York Times or something. That was kind of a overthinking, intellectual review of one of my books. And that was such a compliment. I mean, I'm vain enough. And I also thought it was very clever to say that you think you're 10 steps ahead of this hayseed, and then you realize at some point, this guy is ahead of me.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Texas has a reputation for being tough on crime, but beneath the surface, buried in the darkness that only those affected by tragedy know, is the reality of a flawed and insufficient justice system. More than 60% of violent crimes in Texas go unsolved, and many are at the hands of offenders who should have never had the opportunity, madmen who slipped through the cracks. On Gone Cold Podcast, Texas True Crime, you'll find in-depth accounts of unsolved homicides, missing persons cases, and other mysteries throughout Texas. From the historic and perplexing case of the 1948 disappearance of a Denton co-ed, Virginia Carpenter, to the unthinkable, the Orange, Texas abduction and murder of 4-year-old Denaria Finley in 2002. You can find and subscribe to Gone Cold, Texas True Crime, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
By the way, speaking of Hayseed, I play the character Hayseed Schwartz in Dennis Quaid's new podcast. Gary Busey is also in it as Uncle Drank. It's called Uncle Drank, and I am the manager of Uncle Drank, Hayseed Schwartz.
And that is called Uncle Drank's podcast, right? Did you say Dennis Quaid?
Dennis Quaid plays the blender, animated blender.
Nice.
The show really rides on whether Gary Busey and Kinky Friedman can keep it together. I think he's taking a chance with this one, going out on a limb, but it's really funny.
Nice. Everybody check that out. Uncle Drank's podcast.
Uncle Drank. And it may not be out quite yet, but coming soon.
Fantastic. I do have at home, I have Stepping on a Rainbow. You were nice enough to autograph it for me about 10 years ago.
I'll sign anything but bad legislation. I was kind enough to sign it. What? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no worries. You signed it for me about 10 years ago. You were at it was at a cigar bar where you were, I guess, unveiling your line of cigars.
Homosexual convention?
No. different one.
I am so imbued with cigars, I can tell you more things about yourself than you want to know by how you're smoking the cigar.
Really?
Yeah, if you're smoking it like this, you're a Nazi. There's a lot of different ways you can... Because I watch this shit. Because I'm incessantly smoking cigars. And I think it's good for you.
Well, it must be. You beat out all those other fools that were born around the same time as you.
Yeah. Of course, I don't know if I'd call them fools, but... I thought you were talking specifically about Michael Bloomfield, Shel Silverstein, Warren Zevon, Steve Goodman. You can add Chinga Chavin to that. Chinga, who wrote Proud to be an Asshole from El Paso. And he also wrote Cum Stains on the Pillow Where Your Sweet Head Used to Be. Hope we can get that one in there, Steve.
Absolutely. That's not coming out. So you wrote 20 detective novels. You've written a couple of other books that are not in that series.
Kill Two Birds and Get Stoned, Willie's title. Willie is very good with titles, and I'm pretty good with titles. Now, doing the work itself, that's another matter. You got to work for that.
So these 20 books that you wrote, the Kinky Friedman detective series.
The word we're looking for is Irv. Not the Jewish Irv, I-R-V, a name, but Irv, E-U-R-V-E, Irv.
Yes,
Irv.
your Ove.
Part of your Irv.
Part of your Ove. And those books are about to come out one at a time as audiobooks, as read by the great Mike Dawson.
The first one is out, Greenwich Killing Time. And you get it, through Amazon Audible. But so far, it's beaten out almost all the other books, I understand. It's doing well. But if you've ever tried to audio your own book, you'll be there for the rest of your life trying to do it. You make one little slip and fuck, and you don't even sound like yourself.
Right.
It's very revealing about you. So I had the wisdom to say, go ahead, Mike, you do it. So Mike did, and the damn thing sounds a lot like me, half like me, and half like Mike. But he's a pro. He's done more than 20 books himself, a lot more. And I figure by the time we hit about 7 books, people will catch on. Now, there will always be people like Warren Zevon, who after he was dead, his manager told me, that Warren would pack a whole cardboard box of your books before he left on tour. I mean, that's priceless. It's great because that's very hard to do. And I think I do a little thing at the beginning, a little...
Like a forward.
Yeah. But whatever it is, once there's 7 or 6, 7, 8, 5 of those books circulating around, that's when it turns into a financial pleasure. That's when people say, I admire your earlier work. And people do. They believe whatever you tell them. I remember in New York once, I was at a book signing for me, and I had a limo there. And I didn't want a limo. I said, it's a small step from the limo to the gutter. And I was right. And then I had to race to the airport, and there were people going out of the way. Kinky's got to get there, And it felt good for about 2 minutes.
Then you felt like an asshole.
Yeah. Of course, that is the illness that I have, early onset asshole.
At least it's not AIDS.
It's not AIDS, no, but that's very fortunate for me. And there's another joke that I can't tell. My golf jokes I do well, and I don't like golf. I find it stultifyingly dull. The closest I've ever got really was riding in a golf cart with Willie at his golf course. And this woman came running up to us, and she was kind of hysterical. She said, I've been stung by a bee. And the golf pro asked her, where did it sting you? And she says, between the first and second holes. And the golf pro says, well, I can tell you right now, your stance is too wide.
Tell me about Nelson Mandela.
Well, I'll tell you. The first song on Resurrection is Mandela's Blues, co-written with Zoe, a friend of mine. I think one of the best ones on there, it turned out.
When he got off of Robben Island, he never looked back at that evil place. He looked to the sea and he looked to the mountains with a beatific smile on his face. They tried to break him in that awful prison, but he held his ground without thinking twice. He looked to Gandhi and he looked to Jesus. He was a walking, talking sacrifice. 30 years in rags and prison shoes. He paid a whole nation's dues. He lost everything that a man could lose. Everything but Mandela's blues. His 5-year-old daughter once asked him, Daddy, where do you go when you're gone? He hugged her and told her, honey, there's a million little children I must keep watch upon. 30 years in rags and prison shoes, paid a whole nation's dues. He lost everything that a man can lose, everything but Mandela's blues. And it's a long walk to freedom, with no one to show you the way. It's a long walk to freedom. There we will always stay. When he got off of Robben Island, black and white all shook his hand. But he smiled at Jesus and he winked to Gandhi, 'cause he knew that they would understand. 30 years in rags and prison shoes, he paid a whole nation's dues. He lost everything that a man can lose, everything but Mandela's blues. And it's a long walk to freedom, with no one to show you the way. It's a long walk to freedom. There we will always stay. It's a long walk to freedom, with no one to show you the way. It's a long walk to freedom. There we will always stay. There we will always stay.
There's a lot of fascinating stuff about Mandela. And one of the things is, it happened when I was on a book tour of South Africa in the 90s somewhere. I was doing some national TV show, and there was this guy there named Tokyo Seshwale. He said sex whale, is how to remember it. He was Mandela's right-hand man. So he goes on to tell me, he says, you know Mandela was a big fan of yours. And I said, no, I did not know that. I said, that's great, man. He said, which book is it? He said, well, it's not the books. He likes your music. But now don't get a swelled head about this, Kinky, because you were not Mandela's favorite singer. That was always Dolly Parton. And this rang so true that I knew it was. And then I chased it back a little bit, that Mandela used to play this stuff late at night, and they would let him do that. I mean, after trying to kill him many times, they let him have his own pirate radio show for the other inmates. Maybe it'll settle people down. I mean, Soul American song he liked very much. And Tokyo heard him play the damn thing all the time. And then Tokyo said, then one night he stumbled on Ride 'em Jew Boy. And when he did that, he never let go of it. And he would play it multiple times sometimes the same night. And I was thinking, what a great man Mandela was. This was not even his beef. I mean, to understand and care about somebody else's situation and not about the tribal problems in Africa or the children starving. That he was always involved with. But Jew Boy was one he understood. And then there was a woman named Helen Sussman, a little Jew girl, as she described herself, who came to a book signing of mine in San Antonio. She was the only woman in the apartheid government, the only Jew in the apartheid government, and the only person in that government to ever visit Mandela in prison, which she did often. And Mandela had cassette tapes that were smuggled to him, and I think that's where he got Ride 'em Jew Boy. That's detective work on my part.
What the hell was that lady doing in San Antonio?
Good question. I think she had relatives there.
Oh, that makes sense.
Helen Sussman is a hero in South Africa.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
You know those popping phone handle things that you see on everyone's phones nowadays? Well, how would you like to put your logo on them? Does your podcast or band need new merch? Do you want to bring attention to your new book or film? Maybe you need something unique for your Patreon or crowdfunding campaign. Then visit thelogopop.com, where you can customize them with the logo of your podcast, band, business, art, school mascot, or whatever else you can think of. These are way more affordable than you may think at thelogopop.com. Mention where you heard this ad and get free shipping on your entire order. Remember, that's thelogopop.com to order your custom popping phone handles. That's thelogopop.com.
Let's get back into it.
Well, that song, Ride 'em Jew Boy, since it was such a huge favorite of such a great man, can I play that song on this episode?
I wish you would, and I wish you'd do Willie's version of it. Oh, you don't have it, though.
I bet I could find it.
If you do, let's play it. It may not be quite as good as the original, the writer's version, but it is stunning because it's so unusual. Like, I know Bob Dylan likes the song very much. So does Paul Simon.
Are we still talking about Ride 'em Jew Boy?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, the first time I met Bob, he was at Roger McGuinn's house, lying on the floor in the kitchen, and he got up and he sang Ride 'em Jew Boy perfectly. I mean, he was drunk, but it would have probably been more profitable for the Kinkster had he done it in another venue. But the one who had the pawn shop balls to do the song finally was Willie. Although I would love to hear Bob's version of it, if it exists. There's always been these recurring rumors that Bob has a Jewish album on which he has Ride 'em Jew Boy.
Well, I'll blow in a call to Bob Dylan and see. Oh, no, I won't do that. But I will scour the internet and see if I can find it. And if I can't find it.
Sounds also a little too much like urban myth.
Yeah.
But then if you say that Willie Nelson has recorded Ride 'em Jew Boy, that also sounds like a joke. But I find that Christians cry. Christians deeply identify with this song. Jews are worried, is it anti-Semitic? Possibly. Could it be?
If it's written by a Jewish person, could it possibly be anti-Semitic?
Yes, because the Jews are
self-hating.
They're a self-hating lot. The American Jews are a weak bunch. At any rate, yeah, I'm not a big fan of most American Jews. I'm more the Bob Dylan, Abbie Hoffman, Dr. Jonas Salk fan.
Now, speaking of Abbie Hoffman, I heard a rumor that you were there in Chicago when all that shit went down, the trial of the Chicago 7. I heard you were there when all that shit went down. Is that true?
At that point, no, I guess Abbie still was running from the feds at that point. Or he hadn't started to, maybe. Just starting to. Or they would have nailed him.
Right.
You're one day short. It was the day before when Willie was celebrating his vasectomy and he had a video of it. Or if they had video then, whatever they should, he had that. And I saw the video. Not a pleasant sight. But Abbie came up here. He lived down here for 6 months to a year in a house over by what we like to call the annex.
Here?
Oh, yeah.
On your ranch?
He was here on the ranch. He assumed several false identities. I had a pool table then. Abbie was a genius at chess, pool, and almost anything. Willie is, too. Very good at learning that shit fast. Dominoes, I'm sure Abbie didn't play dominoes, I don't think, but had he wanted to, he would have been a champ. Willie is. But I took him to the OST, Old Spanish Trail in Bandera.
That's the restaurant. My wife and I are going to go there.
To dinner. We got drunk and went places, and I had a real strong feeling that Abbie was not making this shit up, that the feds were after him. I mean, first of all, he would have made a horrible drug dealer. I mean, he gave all his stash away to people. You know, he would snort it all himself. He couldn't keep accurate numbers and count, you know what I mean? And he was a warm-hearted man. He was a kind-hearted guy. Would have never made a dope dealer, and that's what they busted him for, all this dope. And he never carried a lot of dope. He could always get dope. It was free love and free drugs and everything else. That's what he was good at. And the music, of course, was great. Well, you know, why don't we just let things play out the way they do? I'd like to hear Ride 'em Jew Boy. Willie's version of it, I think, is a real triumph for somebody somewhere.
Usually I ask the artist permission, like I just did you, but I don't think I can ask Willie. I have his publicist's email, but she...
Oh, but you don't have to.
Why? Because you wrote it?
No, because I wrote it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
no,
cool.
I mean, and it's already been recorded.
Right.
Pee Wee Herman could do it, and you can't stop him.
Okay.
If he's masturbating like a monkey or something at the time, you can't stop him. All right, so now I think we're degenerating.
A little bit.
Okay, but if you could help out the Kinkster with that, and if we can't get Willie, Kinky's version will have to do, I think.
Okay, I'll see if I can find Willie's.
Okay.
If it exists, I can find it.
People say it's great. I know it's great, but it's a little different kind of a thing, but it is beautiful.
I've interviewed one of his granddaughters on my show, Raylan Nelson.
Uh-huh.
Sweet girl, super nice. She had a lot of nice stories about Papa Willie.
Willie's family is as big as Robert Earl Keene's head. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean his physical head is enormous, which means Robert Earl is probably a pretty smart boy. See, I've got a pinhead.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Ride 'em to boy. Ride 'em all around the old corral. I'm with you. I'm with you, boy. If I got to ride 6 million miles, now the smoke from the camps arising, see the helpless creatures on their way. Well, old pal, ain't it surprising how far you can go before you stay? Do not let the morning blind you, when on your sleeve you wore the yellow star. Old memories still live behind you. Can't you see by your outfit who you are? How long will you be driven relentlessly around the world? The blood and the rhythms of the soul. Wild pony is all. Your dreams were broken, rounded up and made to move along. The loneliness which can't be spoken just swings a rope and rides inside a song. Dead limbs play with ringless fingers, a melody which burns you deep inside. Oh, how the song becomes the singer's. May peace be ever with you when you ride. Glowing reminds you that today you are a child. The road ahead forever rolling, and anything worth crying can be he smiles. So ride, 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 ride 'em, Jew boy. Ride 'em all around the old corral. I'm with you, I'm with you, boy. If I got to ride 6 midnight miles.
Somebody in Australia once said, put that up as an advertisement for the show, said, Kinky is a man. He will sing the songs that made him infamous, and he will read from the books that made him respectable. That's pretty smart.
And did you?
Yes. That was not my best belch.
Do you still have your own line of cigars?
I can't speak to this matter because it's a legal thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a legal thing. It doesn't involve me. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
All right, moving on.
In fact, that's what I love about Father Damien, what I love about Gandhi. I mean, you're not seeing Garth Brooks and one of the, I don't even know the names of these motherfuckers, but they're making billions. Who's the guy that made 1B this time? Keith.
Toby Keith.
Toby Keith. Now, you can't hate a guy like that. And Garth Brooks was very, very, I know, went out of his way to help Hazel Smith, who just about founded the Outlaws, and very close to me, and all I could summon up was a phone call, when she was dying. And Garth, I think, as her family has told me, that was very generous, and there in person. So Garth Brooks, what do I call him? The anti-Hank. Yeah, that's not very nice. I'll stop doing that. Yeah, I'll stop doing that officially now.
Okay, so moving away from the cigars.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your tequila. There's tequila with your mug on it.
Well, the tequila is a lot more fun than the cigars, and I can talk about that. Mexican mouthwash, I call it.
Now, why do you call it that?
I think it's a good description of it. It's like what I also call it sometimes of the Barry Manilow drink. Tequila is the Barry Manilow drink because it makes you happy for a very short period of time.
Nice.
You will see I've clocked it at about 8 minutes. Then you absolutely have to go over and, like a little parakeet, have a little...
Have a little what?
Have a little... And I'm really going to need it if I go back on the road. Because even Willie has said, and then other musicians have told me that too, that they're never going to fucking remember shit after a year. Totally different environment. They're not exactly rehearsing.
Right. Is there a chance you're going to go back on the road? Is that a thing that might happen?
Yeah, there's always a chance if I can follow Frank Sinatra's style, which is no rehearsals and one take, but the results are great. So it works for him. My tequila, it's Man in Black Tequila, it's called. And it salutes, our company salutes Johnny Cash, Zorro, Lash LaRue, and Richard Boone, who was a Jew.
Oh, he was a what?
He was a Jew. Yeah.
So this is a beautiful bottle that I'm holding in my hand.
Yeah, the tequila is shit, but no, I'm not. Nobody will say it's shit. Now, which one do you have?
This is the Plata.
That's the best. That's the working man's tequila. That's what you want.
Now, why is this only available in one store?
Well, like the record business, the tequila business is crazy and difficult, and you got to have licenses and crap and all kinds of shit. So that's what I think. I think it's a personal project of the woman who sells it but she keeps raising the price and it keeps selling more and more and more.
That lady who owns that store?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's great tequila, particularly what you have there. The
Plata.
That will change your mood, Steve, just in a second. And that's what you want. You want the Barry Manilow effect. And that's what I strive for on stage. If I'm stumbling and bumbling around trying to remember the word leprosy, then I have a little shot, come back and knock it out of the park. Now, you notice this in the documentary on Glenn Campbell, which you might have seen on Alzheimer's.
I didn't, but go ahead.
Check that out for your own personal enjoyment.
Okay. What if I forget?
You won't forget. This is a good one.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I think I'm going to cut it right there. Make sure you come back next week to catch part 2 of this engrossing and entertaining conversation with the wonderful and legendary Kinky Friedman. Thanks, guys. Hey, Streetwalkers, it's time for a giveaway. Thanks to our generous friends at Sylvania, we're going to give away some Bluetooth speakers. What do you think? These are fairly special and limited Fascination Street podcast edition, as they have a little Fascination Street emblem on the end. This oblong Bluetooth speaker is about 8 inches tall and about 3 inches in diameter, and is IPX4 waterproof. So how do you win? Well, what I need all of you to do is post a short video to your Instagram story, your Facebook story, or even your TikTok, telling everybody why you love Fascination Street Podcast and which is your favorite episode. Make sure to tag the show in these videos, and each week I'll pick one winner to win one of these special limited edition Sylvania Bluetooth speakers, and I'll mail it to you. And I might even throw a couple of other Fascination Street pod swag in there as well. So tell a friend, tell all your friends, and include it in your stories on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. And don't forget to tag the show, Fascination Street Podcast. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.